Hello and welcome back to the Pitch Side podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this podcast and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes of the podcast and all the content on the channel. Of course, follow us on social media, site PSP on Twitter, Pitch Side Pod on Instagram, and you can listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform. Join us here in episode 154 and the weekend preview. But before we get into the proper weekend preview, there's a lot to sink our teeth into from yesterday, of course, across Europe, and we start with the Premier League, where Manchester United lost to Liverpool 4-2, and this game is an anomaly, I think, and is a really, I would say, drastic change from what we saw most of the season, because this is a big game that actually delivered, that actually, lived up to its hype. And maybe the fact that it was postponed a little bit made it a little bit more exciting. I don't know, but this was a brilliant game, by the way. And I think if you missed it, you missed all the great football. Liverpool, I think this was Liverpool's best game of the season. And, by some distance, considering the season they've been having and the injuries and all of that. They were their intense 2018-19 selves, really pressing really high, and for a period of time, they were just all over Manchester United, and United couldn't even get it past their midfield. It was a brilliant game, but it was seesawing. It wasn't exactly Liverpool dominating as much as it was Liverpool taking over in their periods of strength, really being the better side. That's about it. United started really bad at the better of the two. They started for the first 15 to 20 minutes really well. Liverpool looked a bit shaky at the start. Certainly the two centre-halves in Nathaniel Phillips and Reece Williams held themselves well for the rest of the game. After the goal, which was claimed by Bruno Fernandes, although I think it's mostly an own goal. After that, Liverpool started getting into the bit of the game, really getting through the gears. But then, of course, I think by the from the 30th minute to the 60th, I would say that was the best, that was the best string for Liverpool throughout the whole game. It was a brilliant half an hour. The last quarter of an hour, the first half, and the first quarter of an hour, the second half, was a brilliant period for Liverpool in the game. They were pressing high, they were putting Manchester United to all sorts of trouble, and Man United themselves were really bad, giving the ball away too many times. And this was, I think, as we mentioned, that is Liverpool's best game of the season. I would say it's United's worst of the season as well. I mean, they had some horrendous performances at home before. Don't we forget, they lost 6-1 to Tottenham, they lost 3-1 to Crystal Palace, they drew in a couple of games against Chelsea there, they lost to Arsenal 1-0 there, so they had some, bad results more or less there, lost to Leicester just recently, so you have to think that this game is, you think when they rested their players for the game against Leicester, you think, okay, they rested them to beat Liverpool, right? But that didn't happen. They didn't beat Liverpool, and they completely got bashed, I would say, for the most part. The goal from Marcus Rashford came at a good period for United. We thought, there's a way to come back there, but definitely the fact that Liverpool kept going at them, and United exposed themselves too much. And again, this was another instance where Ole Gunnar Solskjaer managed the game wrongly. He completely misunderstood what he needed from the game and what United needed from the game, and he acted accordingly. Donny van de Beek wasn't introduced, by the way, so that's a plus anytime he doesn't make it on the pitch, I guess. And then you have the changes that he made, taking out Fred for Mason Greenwood and leaving McTominay on himself pretty much in that central midfield position. And Pogba, we all know that Pogba is not going to be defending, so that is always a minus then. And you allowed Thiago and Wijnaldum and Fabinho to completely control him. And then you have the weirdest decision in the world. Like, unless Eric Bailly is injured, I really didn't understand why you would take him off. Why you would do that, I don't really know. Anyways, it was a weird sort of situation for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he opened the midfield and opened the defense too much, and he was just waiting for Liverpool to bounce on the counter, and Mo Salah did in the 90th minute, scoring his 21st goal this season, joined with Harry Kane on top of the scoring charts, and giving Liverpool a massive victory. I would say a very, very important victory, considering that they still have a game in hand. They will play against West Brom on the weekend, and that will give them 1 point behind Chelsea, which is going to be a massive transformation at this time of the season, at this point of the season. 2 games out from the end, it's going to be a brilliant finish from Liverpool. A thoroughly deserved victory, of course, for Liverpool. Elsewhere in the Premier League, also Aston Villa drawn with Everton 0-0. I think that shanked any sort of hope Everton had for a top 4 finish, or even a top 6, I would say. From England, we go to Germany. It was the Bundesliga, of course, Bundesliga as it was on hold. And this midweek, as we watched the final of the DFB Pokal between RB Leipzig and Borussia Dortmund, the Westphalian side went victorious 4-1 at the Olympiastadion in Berlin. It was, I'm not going to say a rout from Dortmund, because they weren't exactly having most of the domination. It was Leipzig who dominated the game, in fact, had more possession and had more opportunities. But when you have an effective team like Dortmund, you really don't need a lot of opportunities to score. Despite the fact that their defense is not great this season, but I think Dortmund managed a really strong attacking side in their team. Erling Haaland scored twice in the 4 goals. Jadon Sancho scored twice in the 4 goals. That's a brace for each. And of course, they're the 2 best players, I would say, in the side, and definitely well-deserved score for Dortmund. They won a trophy. I mean, in a season where they had so many troubles, I would say, getting rid of Lucien Favre midway, Edin Terzic taking the job as an interim manager and not even starting well for the first couple of weeks, really. Now they're starting getting the good rhythm and the momentum, and this might be an actual booster, I would say, for the rest of the season. They still have a couple of games left in the Bundesliga, so probably they could make a late charge for a top 4 spot. I mean, they're in the top 4s in Bundesliga, so I think they could make a late charge to keep that top 4 spot and to go into the Champions League next season. And this is going to be quite the perfect ending, I would say, for a pretty tough season for Borussia Dortmund. Again, the changing of the manager and the whole story now about Sancho and Haaland. They're going to be chased till the cows come home in the summer for the transfer market. Definitely going to be a good ending for Dortmund. A trophy and something they would really be happy of, that they'd made not just the double, but the treble against Leipzig this season. They played them 3 times and they beat them 3 times, scoring 10 goals in them in those 3 games. While RB Leipzig only managed 4. So, a personal note, really, as a Bayern fan, this kind of performances made me afraid, made me worried what's going to happen with Julian Nagelsmann at Bayern. I mean, I know Bayern is a different animal, but I think he has a bit of a history with Dortmund. They are his sort of black sheep kind of thing, and almost the side that beats him every time, a thorn in his side. So hopefully it doesn't happen at Bayern. But of course, congratulations to Borussia Dortmund. RB Leipzig missed the opportunity to win the first trophy in their history. Good luck for them next season. Maybe they will do it, who knows. But congratulations go to Borussia Dortmund once again. Finishing off with, of course, with Spain, talking about yesterday's football, and we go to the La Liga, whereas Real Valladolid lost Villarreal 2-0 at home. Eibar forced Real Betis to draw 1-1 at home as well, and then, of course, we had the big game that had relevancy to the title race in Spain, with Granada hosting Real Madrid, a potential banana skin everybody was expecting before the game, but it turned out it was a pretty easy cakewalk for Real Madrid, I would say. 2 goals either side of half-time for, in each half, that is. Luka Modric opened the scoring in the 17th minute, 24th, in the 54th minute, the 45th minute, Rodrigo made it 2-0 with assist of Marvin Park, one of the many changes that Zinedine Zidane made to the side, and introducing a couple of young players, really starting with Marvin Park, starting with Rodrigo, starting with Miguel Gutierrez on the left instead of either Mendy or Marcelo, which is, I think, a good choice. He played really well for the most part. Federico Valverde in the middle, returning to a good form, I think, instead of Cruz. Then, of course, after Jorge Molina made it 2-1 in the 71st minute, it was a bit of a nervy patch for Real Madrid after that goal, but they managed to control the game back. Odriozola scored in the 75th minute, and Karim Benzema managed to make it 4-1 in the 76th minute after a horrendous mistake from Granada's goalkeeper, Rui Silva. This was, I think, a pretty important victory for Real Madrid. As I mentioned, just like in the Premier League, they still have 2 weeks to play in La Liga, so it's going to be really, really tough. any slip-up this week for Atletico Madrid, and Real Madrid could have a late charge to win the trophy once again. This is going to be a big week, a massive week for Real Madrid, and we're going to talk about that in just a moment. But again, an important victory for the Merengue side. Let's carry on now with the same momentum and talk about the next week of La Liga, of course, coming up next this weekend. It's going to be round 37, the penultimate round of La Liga, and it's a big turn towards the trophy for Atletico Madrid. They're almost touching the trophy, I would say, in Atletico Madrid. Round kicks off on Sunday. It's played on Sunday. All of the round is played on Sunday, with Athletic Bilbao hosting Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid hosting Osasuna, Barcelona playing Celta Vigo, Cadiz playing Elche, Deportivo Alaves playing Granada, Getafe playing Levante, Real Betis hosting Huesca, Real Sociedad playing Valladolid, Valencia playing Eibar, and Villarreal playing Sevilla. Obviously, all of the games are played in the same time. That is, I think, pretty appropriate and pretty ethical to avoid any kind of misunderstanding or any kind of maybe match fixing kind of situation. So the big focus obviously is going to be on the two Madrid sides. I would say even Barcelona out of it pretty much, with the 4 points behind Atletico Madrid. Mathematically speaking, they're out of the race. Even if they manage, I would say, to get the points up with Atletico Madrid this week. I mean, the last weekend may be a great one if Atletico Madrid drop points against Osasuna, but I don't think anybody is expecting Atletico Madrid to drop points against Osasuna as much as they expect Real Madrid to drop points against Athletic Bilbao already. Athletic Bilbao, they've been a thorn in their side this season with a Super Cup elimination early on, and you expect really Real Madrid to focus on this game and, carry it as it is a cup final almost. For Zinedine Zidane, maybe a last chance to get something out of this season for Real Madrid, to somehow get the trophy of La Liga in their own hands after they've been eliminated from the Champions League, an early and quite honestly shameful elimination from the Copa del Rey, and then you have this situation with La Liga. Obviously they want to make a late surge for it, but I don't think Athletic Bilbao will let them just pass about it. They've been a decent side, Athletic Bilbao. They are 9th on the table at the moment. Pretty warm. They don't need to be afraid about anything. They're not going really up. They're not going really high, like top 6 or top 4, and they're not going down. So they will play this game without any kind of pressure. The pressure obviously is on Real Madrid. There's no doubt about it. You need to know that the game against Granada and winning 4-1 might be a good sign, but Granada are not necessarily Athletic Bilbao. Yes, they are in the same sort of area of the table because Granada are 10th and Athletic are 9th, but you really have to think that Bilbao have just a slighter, stronger defense when you consider that Granada conceded 61 goals this season and Athletic Bilbao conceded only 39. You have to really start thinking. I mean, that is like 3 more goals conceded than Barcelona at 3rd. And Barcelona are competing for the title. So you have to understand that this is a pretty tight defense for Athletic Bilbao by those standards of mid-table. So it's going to be a hard game for Real Madrid, obviously. For Atletico Madrid, again, nobody expected them to lose to Osasuna, so it's not going to be a big problem. Maybe on paper, again, an easy game for Atletico Madrid. So Osasuna, as well as Granada and Athletic Bilbao before them, they don't have anything to worry about really. They're not going to be relegated. They're not going to drop down too much. They're on the warm zone of the table, I would say. So they're not going to be afraid about anything. And Barcelona Celta Vigo, again, a 3rd game where the top sides of the table playing for La Liga are facing sides that have no pressure whatsoever on them. Like Celta Vigo now, they will play, I think, for the love of it, for the sake of it. They're playing just to play football, to enjoy the games that they're going to be having till the end of the season. And this is going to put a lot of pressure on Barcelona. And if they didn't have pressure already, the rumours and the reports suggesting that Koeman's future is up in the air, and there was meetings with Laporta and there was meetings with the rest of the board, and suggesting that Koeman might leave the club at the end of the season despite bringing them a Copa del Rey. And really, I would say, overachieving in the fact that they were competing for the title in the first place. This is an overachievement for Barcelona. I'm not backing down to this statement, by the way. Considering the situation, the financial situation, the whole atmosphere of the club in the beginning of the season, this was, I think, a big achievement getting to the Champions League spots in the first place, and with this squad that I still think it's average. And, don't really get me started. I mean, don't talk to me about those players. Listen, Messi is on one side, and the rest of the players are on the other side. You're talking the likes of Sergio Roberto. Yes, De Jong came good this season, and really probably was the best player from Barcelona, aside from Messi. Then you have Busquets, Pedri coming good, I would say. Decent, still has room to improve. But when you're playing with the likes of Martin Braithwaite in your squad, come on. You're not winning the league with someone like Martin Braithwaite in your squad. The squad has to be deep. You look at the likes of City in England, how they win the league, and the squad they have, the strong squad that they have, they could field their third side and you will never feel the difference. That's how good they are. As far as Barcelona are concerned, they barely have a first 11, I would say, at certain points, and they have a paper-thin squad. Somehow they made it to the final stages of the season, competing for the title, which is, again, an overachievement, and all credit to Koeman, I would say. We need to give him credit at the very least for turning things around, finding a good formation for some parts of the season, and playing with it, and sticking to it. So that's going to be quite nice. Also, not just interesting battles on the top of the table in the Liga, there will be some interesting battle in the bottom of the table. Huesca, of course, still interested in the relegation battle. They face Real Betis, who are 6th at the table, so it's going to be a life-or-death game for them. Valladolid play Real Sociedad, who are 5th at the table, so it's going to be almost a battle of top table versus bottom table sides, quite frankly. Getafe still involved in the battle as well. They face Levante, who are pretty far away with 6 points between them, and Valencia, of course, just about survived, I would say. I would say just about sneaked away from the relegation battle and kept themselves in La Liga. A horrendous season for the Bats, I would say, by their normal standards, where they usually play in Europe. I mean, last season they were in the Champions League, by the way, if people forgot about it. So it has to be a situation where Valencia, can save themselves and play better next season and focus on playing for better spots. And of course, you have Sevilla playing Villarreal. That is going to be a good, tasty game between two sides that are going to be playing in Europe next season. And Villarreal, of course, one of them are the finalists of the Europa League. Quite an interesting round of matches in La Liga to be played. From Spain to Italy, of course, and in the Serie A, it's certainly not the title race that is interesting at the moment or exciting. It is the top 4 that is obviously taking all the consideration, all the attention, and I think for one particular reason more than anything else is the fact that potentially Juventus could be out of the Champions League, could be out of Europe for the season. So the round kicks off on Saturday with Genoa playing Atalanta, Spezia playing Torino, Juve playing Inter, of course, and then you have Roma versus Lazio in that Roma derby. Fiorentina versus Napoli on Sunday, Benevento Crotone, Udinese Sampdoria, Parma Sassuolo, Milan Cagliari on a Monday, Hellas Verona versus Bologna. This is a big week for Juventus. Obviously, after the big victory against Sassuolo in the midweek, everybody's looking at this game like it's life and death for Juventus. And obviously, you might think that Inter Milan would sort of, I don't know, let themselves loose a little bit, play a second string of players, I don't know, rest their players. But I don't think that they would need that. They don't have any other competition to play forward to. They don't have European finals. They don't have a cup final to play for. In fact, it's Juventus who do have a cup final to play for in the next week. Of course, they play in the next Wednesday against Atalanta in the cup final, and this game I think is a pretty important one for Juventus, the cup final, to get a trophy, at least to formally save their season somehow, like formally say that we won a trophy and we made something out of a middling season, I would say, in all honesty. Again, this season where Juventus took a first-time manager and gave him a big job, I would say a bigger job than he could ever imagine. Like Andrea Pirlo was supposed to coach the under-23, and then he was promoted to coach the seniors team, and that created a whole host of troubles since the beginning. The fact that he was still learning the trade, literally still taking courses as the season was going on in the first couple of games of the Champions League. And, the fact that he got them out of the group stages and into the round of 16, and then he got them, and he got him a couple of victories and to the final of the Coppa Italia is a pretty big achievement in of itself for a first-time manager. But obviously, he still had a lot to learn, a lot to just, notice and remark and make his mind up on. It's certainly he led Juventus in the wrong way. Let's put it this way. He wasn't stable in his lineup choice, in his shape choice for most of the season. Yes, mostly plays 4-4-2, but but he changes the formation. Sometimes plays at 3 at the back, sometimes plays at 4 in the back, 5 at the back. He really changes the situation a lot, and you feel the mediocrity in Juventus performances this season. You really feel how middling Juventus performances are. Certainly, their form has been horrendous at home. In particular, they had some terrible results there, losing to Milan there, to Fiorentina there, drawn to Atalanta there, and certainly having some other bad results, of course, losing to Napoli. It is definitely a situation where Juventus have brought themselves into with their own hands, their own doing. And considering that that Andrea Agnelli, their president, is one of the most ambitious men behind this Super League project, this is going to be quite the failure if they don't make it to the Champions League. And obviously there's the off-the-pitch situation with the Federation threatening to exile them from Serie A, and the UEFA threatening to ban them for 2 seasons of the Champions League for their involvement in the Super League if they don't agree on a settlement with the UEFA. That's going to be quite big. And, this is going to be maybe either a patching period for Juventus. Could they patch their season, put a good run together in these last couple of games, beat Inter and beat Bologna and get to the Champions League? That is, of course, assuming the other clubs do not win their games. Looking at the lay of the land, you can see Atalanta beating Genoa, you could see Napoli beating Fiorentina, and you could see Milan beating Cagliari, so there's no problem in that. Milan just dispatch of the 2 Turin sides, 10-0 on aggregate, beating Juve 3-0 and then managing to smash Torino 7-0, so you don't think there is going to be a problem in that. But as far as Juve are concerned, this is the big hurdle in front of them, because I don't think they will have a lot of problem beating Bologna, albeit every game for them is tricky this season. But if they lose to Inter Milan this Saturday, it is done and dusted. It is over. There's no way. I mean, if they lose to Inter this Saturday, considering that the rest of the top 4 sides play after them, that's going to give the other sides a little bit of boost. I mean, if Juve win and Milan and Napoli, if Juve lose and Milan and Napoli win their games, that's it. It's over. Juve are going to be out of Europe and there will be no saving grace for them. So it's going to be out of the Champions League, that is. And obviously that's going to affect a lot of things. Cristiano Ronaldo maybe won't play with Juventus, who would leave the club at the summer, and that looks like a big reality with the whole rumours about a PSG deal, a return to United, a return to Lisbon. It's going to be a brilliant game to watch, because just of the amount of intensity that it will see in this game, the pressure that will be on Juve to deliver in this situation, with Inter Milan beating them in the first game 2-0 and actually dominating them, I would say, in the first game. Juventus looked quite mediocre in the first game, and as the season wore on, they sort of became even worse. The game against Sassuolo, again, I said it yesterday, and I said it, and I will say it today, if you didn't watch the game, and you just saw the score of 3-1, you might believe that Juventus dominated the game, but it wasn't the case. Sassuolo with the better side, they missed a penalty early on, and Juventus just took the chances for once. This is the big game again, and I think everybody who's watching Serie A this season for the top 4 battle is going to be watching this game and hoping, maybe, if they're a Juventus fan, hoping to win to get the Champions League. If they're an Inter fan, they would hope that Juventus lose. If they're a Napoli, Milan, Atalanta, obviously all of them will hope that Juventus will lose. As a neutral, you know what? I mean, if they deserve to lose, they deserve to be out of the Champions League. Solid, they will be out of the Champions League. It doesn't matter. They brought themselves into this situation, and it was already a collapsing title defense. So if they go out of Europe, I mean, it's funny, really. By the way, I really didn't notice that until now, pretty much. But 4 of the out of the 12 sides that are in the Super League project might not even make it to the Champions League. Like, you look at Tottenham, Arsenal, surely they're not making it in the Champions League. Then you have the potential of Liverpool and Juventus not being in the Champions League. So, I mean, for those sides to have enough shamelessness in them and be involved in the Super League project is, quite frankly, hilarious. I found it hilarious. Anyway, the rest of the games, as I mentioned, pretty easy affairs, I would say, aside from the Roma derby for Lazio. Maybe one last chance for Lazio, still have a game in hand to try and sneak in, but I think mostly they will be playing in the Europa League next season alongside Juventus, question mark. Who knows what's going to be happening in the season really, but again, it's a big turning point for Juve this season. It's a crucial game, and it's a do or die moment, I would say, for the Bianconeri and for Andrea Pirlo. Rounding up the weekend preview itself, and we go to Germany. The Bundesliga, of course, title race is done and dusted, just like in Italy as well, as in England. So the only thing that matters really, or two things matter really in the Bundesliga, is the top 4 battle and the relegation battle as well. The round 33 penultimate round of the Bundesliga, and a pretty interesting one as well for the top 4 sides really. It kicks off on Saturday with Arminia Bielefeld playing Hoffenheim, Bayer Leverkusen playing Union Berlin, Borussia Mönchengladbach playing Stuttgart, Augsburg playing Werder Bremen, Schalke playing Eintracht Frankfurt, Hertha Berlin playing FC Köln, Freiburg playing Bayern München. Of course, all of these games on Saturday, and Mainz playing Dortmund, while Leipzig host Wolfsburg in a big game for both sides on Sunday. Obviously, the top 4 is the point of contention here in the Bundesliga at the moment. There's nothing really worth the investment if you are a neutral viewer in the Bundesliga aside from the top 4 battle. But it's an interesting one nonetheless, because you look at the table, you see Leipzig 64 at second, and that is not even secured anymore, considering that they play Wolfsburg and the results that they had as of late, losing against Dortmund a couple of times, losing against Dortmund in the league last weekend, and losing against them just yesterday in the DFB Pokal. So that is going to put a lot of pressure maybe on them ahead of their game on Sunday. You have Wolfsburg, the one of the strongest defenses in the Bundesliga, and really having a great season under Oliver Glasner. Some seriously amazing results. Probably they could have even been in a better position if they didn't draw 9 games in the season. Frankfurt with 57 points at 5th, and Dortmund with 58 points at 4th. Dortmund again with the DFB Pokal win maybe will get a surge of adrenaline to finish in the top 4 spots, and that would be quite the achievement again, but the game isn't easy at all. They're facing Mainz, a side that is really turned things around this season under Bo Svensson in the second half of the season, coming in, and really just being brilliant. They really were in a position at the table where they had the same amount of points as Schalke early on in the season, with like 5 points or whatever, and they turn things around and they win 31 points from their last 13 games of the season, and it's a brilliant transformation really for Mainz. And if they played probably with the same way early on in the season, we could have been talking about a side that will play for Europe. I mean, that's a form worthy, I think, of a top 4, and worthy really of a side that could play in a high echelon of the table if they were consistent in the start of the season. Borussia Dortmund find problems against Mainz really. The recent record doesn't really suggest that it's an easy game. They just lost against them a couple of times. They lost against them in the second match of last season 2-0, and then they drawn against them at Signal Iduna Park this season 1-1. So it's a pretty hard game, I would say, is going to be for Borussia Dortmund. That's what it is, and Bayern Munich, I think, know that firsthand because they lost against them away from home. And Mainz result again as of late, the form has been really tremendous. They still have a game, of course, in hand against they drawn against Hertha Berlin, they drawn against Frankfurt. They held their sort of progress. They beat Bayern, obviously. They beat Werder Bremen. They beat Köln. Hoffenheim, they beat Freiburg. They have some decent results again as of late, and certainly a side that is really a force to be reckoned with at the moment, and a side that might be a banana skin for Borussia Dortmund top 4 hopes. But I think Borussia Dortmund now at least have enough momentum and have enough in them to finish in the top 4. Eintracht Frankfurt against Schalke, I think it's an easy game. Again, Schalke being relegated, maybe it will be a harder game because Schalke already got relegated and they will play without pressure really. Again, this is the kind of game where you're afraid of. The kind of games where you have an opponent that is not playing for anything, has nothing to lose, already relegated, no pressure on them, so they'll play, freely and openly, just enjoying the couple of games that they still have in the top tier of the Bundesliga. So that's going to be a worrying sign. Eintracht Frankfurt need the victory if they think they can make it to the Champions League football next season. Of course, the last of the bunch is Bayern Munich. They play against Freiburg. I mean, this is just setting things in motion. Try and maybe test players, play some new new players until the in those last couple of games, and trying to plan ahead to the next season with Julian Nagelsmann and all of that. So it's going to be quite an interesting couple of games. Uninteresting, I would say, from a footballing point of view, but obviously for the board, for the new manager in Julian Nagelsmann, who are probably already thinking about the next job, the fact that he's going to be playing the Super Cup against Borussia Dortmund as a manager for Bayern Munich might play all in his hands. So this is a game where Bayern Munich just need to just set in motion, just get through those games and think about next season. This season is to forget, I would say, for Bayern, certainly, with the amount of injuries coming at the wrong time and a complete collapse, I would say. Really, with the Champions League exit, the Cup exit, and they were almost too generous in the league, giving points right, left, and centre. That's it from me for this episode. I was aboard the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of this, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates from the episodes of the podcast. Listen to us on Spotify, Google Podcast, or any other platform, and of course follow the social media site PSP on Twitter, PitchSetPod on Instagram. And until next time, I'll see you soon tomorrow in the magazine episode on Sunday. The African podcast will be returning to review the quarterfinal of the Champions League, and we'll leave the FA Cup final preview, of course, for tomorrow as well in the magazine episodes. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.